Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Welcome to Horror Bytes on Safe Room, the show where we discuss the smaller scares and teenier terrors available to play on your PC. Each week we pick one or two bite-sized horror games and have a suitably short and sweet chat about them. I am your host Neil Bolt, and living through horror movies with me this week, as ever, is my co-host Jay Krieger. How you doing, Jay?
Hey man, doing very well, and for a change, trying to change the channel.
And before we get into that, of course, if you like the sound of what we played, the show notes will include a link to the game we've discussed. And as ever, if you enjoy them, you can consider supporting the developers by donating, wishlisting their future projects, or simply sharing the word, because it all helps to build the next generation of horror game developers. And for this week's pick, it's a mixed media feast with the demo for Katana Levy's Dead Formats. In this survival horror game set in late 90s Scotland, the player's brother has gone missing after becoming obsessed with a mysterious new videotape format called GHL. And tasked with following him, we end up going into these videos and finding out why he went in there, what he was doing, and why the government wants to ban the video ghastlies, as they're called in this one. The demo itself contains two levels, one set inside a silent era horror movie and the other in an 80s body horror movie. Now, I think the thing here that definitely attracted me straight was this mixed media thing, that they've got going on, which is very homegrown. Indie development's one thing, but sort of taking indie filmmaking at its crudest, most fun, definitely sort of adds a certain flavour to this. In the nicest way possible, I say it is one of the rare games where the cutscenes are far worse looking than the game, like that. But that's a very intentional thing for.
Right.
So
complimentary.
Yeah, and the developers basically enrolled family and friends to sort of create these film bits in between. So for the silent era thing, they have the caption cards and stuff, and the body horror thing. They got a little puppet, and they're all put through the VHS format as well to sort of give it that proper just pick this up out of nowhere sort of feel. And yeah, it's a great way to sort of frame what would be your standard sort of spooky corridor shooter sort of style thing we'd normally get, or survival horror in this case. And yeah, that is a great sort of way to hook you on this one. And the underlying sort of conceit of this being, that these are based on video nasties, which in the UK in the 80s was a thing that a whole bunch of films basically just got banned because of as we probably haven't just long sort of had with Steam and Itch.io, busybody groups basically campaigning to get stuff banned because they didn't really understand what they were talking about. And so some films that, yes, were very extreme, got banned, but then some films that were just fine, really just got thrown in with them because, you know, they didn't really get looked at properly. But it made them all notorious, and it made them like this hub for basically being people looking at them as being these satanic things that, oh God, if you have possession of these, you're basically cursed, sort of thing, which is what this sort of game seems to be sort of playing into, which is fantastic. Lots of little movie nods to stuff, like a bit of Cronenberg, obviously Murnau, like with the silent film. And so while the presentation is great, and there's definitely bits and pieces in the game levels themselves that sort of take on aspects of their respective sort of genres, if you will, and eras. It's hard to sort of really make a gauge for how it will all sort of fit together. I know the refreshing thing of this is it gives it sort of anthology vibe, where you will be able to sort of have such a great variety with different things, and with this house as being like a hub for like the videos and stuff, and you've got like the TV's got the fucking CFAX for our UK viewers and listeners. You will possibly know what CFAX was, but it's a sort of great nostalgia piece in that regard as well. But yeah, I can't say I'm fully sure about how the game will turn out, but I think the stuff around it does such great heavy lifting that I think maybe even if it is just a slow start trying to sort of figure out what they're doing with the rest of it, then fine. I think it'll end up being quite successful as an overall package. But how did you sort of feel about this one?
Yeah, I think these days any project where it seems like we're leading with cashing in on nostalgia for, whether it's game or film eras, at this point, being so inundated with those types of experiences, I'm somewhat overly cautious about them
Yeah.
because of the fact that like we've seen so many that it's like, oh, this is all we have, but we're not really cashing in on this in a meaningful way. But what I think sets Dead Format apart is first and foremost the mixed media aspect that you talked about, right? The fact that while those movies that we see, are very crudely constructed, and the first one that you get is basically for a silent picture, right? Symphony of a Severed Soul. It's this very crude thing, but it feels very authentic to the era,
Yeah.
which is terrific through the stylistic aspects. But I think there's a couple of things that really allow this game to kind of like capture that anthology aspect in a way that we haven't seen before. And that is first and foremost, like there's this little feature where when you just look in the direction of the TV, it all of a sudden seamlessly just like bleeds into full screen on the TV, which is one of those things that's like seems inconsequential, but it's just, I think it speaks to sort of the immersiveness of this experience. And that's pretty important when you're talking about blending different styles of media and whatnot. And then the most important aspect probably is that you have that house or the apartment being the hub. And then basically you have like some magic hoo-ha happen. The front door opens and you step into that world. Like that being that seamless, and it not only changing the environment, but changing, the stylistic nature of how it's presented. You go black and white, it's very gothic. But also the fact that there's various styles of gameplay that go with each one of these different worlds. And I think that, talking about the notion of like, well, we don't really have a vision for what the final product would be based upon this. But what I think is going to be most important is the seamlessness with which you can step into those worlds, and also the variety of gameplay that comes with those worlds. Because when you start out with that first chapter, it's stealth based, right? You're trying to avoid this apparition playing the violin, and then it leans more into the puzzle aspect after that. And then in that body horror finale, it gets more into the first person, which is basically like a blending of H.R. Geiger and like the Bone Gun from Existenz, the Cronenberg film, like we had mentioned. And like, I think that is really what's going to be the key to Dead Format, capitalizing on what is already a very promising first look at it, is the ability to pair a variety of gameplays to go with a variety of environments. I don't want to play, 10 more tapes and they all are just like first person shooter based, because I don't necessarily think that that's going to always complement the various types of tapes that we're going to be, exploring in those worlds. I think if they had leaned too heavily up front into the first person shooter aspect, then getting immersed into that world of Symphony of a Severed Soul, I don't think would play nearly as well. So I think in that regard, yeah, it's a notion of like there's always a lighthouse kind of a thing, down to when the video stops playing, you literally are given this like advert. What does it talk about? It talks about like Lighthouse Protective Services or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it's just this notion of like being a window into multiple worlds. And with this demo, they've shown like, no, we can actually present these worlds and create these worlds and make them interesting to walk around through. I think it's going to be a true testament, though, to whether dead format works if we're able to get this sort of like player agency in each of these worlds in a meaningful way, or in at least a variety of ways. Because what's here already, I think, is quite strong. And like you'd said, the home movie aspect is so crude, but you can feel like the love for genre there in a way that is not overbearing, right? I think that the home video for that first encounter is probably like maybe not even 30 seconds long, but in that they're able to really capture like the era of filmmaking, the vibe, the theme of that era. And at the same time, they're able to have a really creepy, practical moment or makeup moment with the quote unquote monster that shows up in it. That's genuinely disturbing to look at, despite the fact it feels like a bad spoof almost on like 20s films or something like that.
Yeah, and and going into like that level itself as well, the black and white just works really well. Like it just looks so striking. Like that's definitely something that's been underutilized, I think, in terms of horror games, really tapping into that sort of eerie, dreamlike feel that sort of silent horror cinema had. When you had it in certain ways. That's of the two, I think that's what captured like its genre sort of best in sort of terms of like the feeling. So that was good. And you were sort of saying about the first person stuff and hopefully not overloading in the full game in terms of what they do. I suppose thematically the game will probably have to be generally first person anyway, and because the main hub is, the main story is, and so far these two sections have been. But there's ways to play around with that and definitely do different things to sort of freshen that up, because I don't know, at first I was kind of hoping and thinking that maybe there's like a hint in what we got of like the classical sort of evolution of game styles, like it's quite maze-like in that first one, and then you move on to sort of shoot a game like that. Maybe, hopefully, further levels will sort of go through history and jump in and out of different sort of periods of game history. The same in that sort of, obviously it's much smaller, compared to film history, but pairing the right things with the right sort of genre would be interesting to see how that works. And would definitely give it a bit more momentum, I suppose. Yeah, that's certainly. And but as we said, this is just the demo, so you can wishlist the game on Steam. And as I said, this is the demo of the full game, so this isn't just a vertical slice or a project. It is pretty much what the game is going to be. So if you enjoy what you play there, looks like you're in for more of the good stuff. But that will be all for this week. Thank you again, Jay, for talking about these short horror games with me. And of course, if you, the listener, have a short horror game, a demo, a game jam entry, or a proof of concept that you think we should be highlighting, you can email us at saferoompod@gmail.com. And Jay will give you the other details.
And if you want to look for show updates and games that we'll be covering in the future, give us a follow on Blue Sky at SaferoomPod.
Thank you. And we will be back with more small-scale horror next week.